If World War III broke out tonight, would you know if you are in danger? Would your city, your state, your country be on the map of the very first strikes? You might think you are safe, but the reality is far more complex and sometimes surprising. Today we are looking at the real threat map, not the rumors. We are about to break down the official data, real-world defense simulations, and the secrets behind how modern militaries pick their targets. We will reveal which zones in the US and around the world would likely face the first attacks, nuclear or conventional. Plus, I will show you 3 warning signs almost nobody talks about, the signals that your area could be moving into the red zone before the headlines even break. If you want to know what really puts a place at risk, stay with me, because this map might hit closer to home than you expect. Let's start with the logic behind the strikes. In a modern world war, targets are not just picked for shock value or symbolism. Military strategists choose based on cold calculation. What cripples an enemy fastest? Top of the list are major command centers, nuclear launch sites, air bases with strategic bombers, and missile silos. After that come critical infrastructure, power grids, oil refineries, ports, rail hubs, and communication nodes. Then you have symbolic targets, big cities, capitals, seats of government, because attacking these can paralyze morale and sow chaos. According to FEMA and military.com, during the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union kept up-to-date lists of primary and secondary targets. Today that list is broader because our societies are more connected and more vulnerable to the loss of critical systems. And it is not just about military hardware anymore. As globalsecurity.org reports, in the 21st century, cyber networks, satellite relays, and even undersea cables are all seen as fair game. Think your city is safe because it is not a capital? Think again. In a real-world scenario, many targets are selected for how much disruption they would cause, not just their symbolic value. Have you ever wondered if your area might be on a list like this? Drop your city or state in the comments if you want a deeper dive. So, what about the United States? The reality is sobering, and sometimes it is not the places you would expect. Let's look closer, because this information is not about fear, but about clarity and awareness. Official FEMA maps, US Department of Defense data, and analysis by experts at globalsecurity.org all point to more than a dozen hot zones, but those are just the start. If you are watching from the US, pay attention, because we are about to go much deeper than the headlines. First and foremost, Washington, D.C. It is not just a city, but the nerve center of the entire federal government. The White House, the Pentagon, the Capitol, the intelligence community, all are packed into a few square miles. During the Cold War, and even today, every scenario modeled by the Department of Defense starts with D.C. as the #1 target for a decapitation strike. The reason is simple. Removing the nation's leadership, command authority, and secure communications in a single blow would create chaos, confusion, and disrupt any coordinated response. D.C. is also surrounded by layers of missile defense, radar, and emergency relocation sites, evidence of how seriously the risk is taken. But the bullseye is not just over the capital. Military command centers across the heartland are on every potential target list. Deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, sits NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. This facility is literally built into a mountain, shielded by blast doors, designed to survive and direct military response in case of nuclear war. NORAD's mission is early detection of incoming missiles, and that makes it a top priority for any adversary. Close by in Nebraska is Offutt Air Force Base, home of U.S. Strategic Command, STRATCOM, which oversees all American nuclear forces. This base, along with a network of hardened backup sites, is crucial to the nation's ability to launch a counterstrike. Any scenario involving ICBMs or major military conflict puts these sites on the front line. Then there are the ICBM fields, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, Minot in North Dakota, F.E. Warren in Wyoming. If you have ever driven across the northern plains and seen clusters of fences and mysterious concrete silos, you have seen the backbone of America's land-based nuclear deterrent. Each base commands dozens of missile silos spread across hundreds of miles. For decades, these have been some of the most closely guarded and constantly monitored targets on Earth. In every official simulation, including FEMA's own National Target Base Atlas, these areas are expected to be struck early, not just to destroy the missiles, but to prevent any chance of a counterattack. For people who live nearby, this is not theory, it is part of everyday life, complete with warning systems and community preparedness drills. But what about the coasts? The risks are just as real, and in some ways, even more complex. New York City is an obvious symbolic target. The financial hub of the world, home to the United Nations, major media, global internet infrastructure, and a city whose disruption would ripple worldwide. As Bloomberg and the New York Times have reported, the city's unique combination of critical infrastructure and high population density makes it a key soft power target. An attack would be both a blow to morale and to global systems. Los Angeles is just as critical, not only as the largest port on the Pacific, but as a center of the aerospace and defense industries. Many of America's advanced weapon systems, satellites, and command networks are built or managed here. San Diego, with its massive Navy presence, is home to the U.S. Pacific Fleet, carrier groups, submarines, and major command structures. Norfolk, Virginia is the heart of the U.S. Atlantic Fleet, the world's largest naval base, and a linchpin for NATO operations. Seattle plays a dual role: shipping, tech infrastructure, and as a base for submarine and air defense forces. Each of these cities is not only critical in wartime, but a daily driver of global commerce and military readiness. Let's go further. Georgia is home to Kings Bay Submarine Base, where some of the U.S. Navy's most advanced ballistic missile submarines are stationed. These boomers form an invisible but vital part of America's nuclear triad, able to launch a response from anywhere in the world. Houston, Texas is on many strike lists, not only for oil and energy infrastructure, think refineries, pipelines, power grids, but also as a logistics hub that supports much of the southern U.S. Chicago is more than just a big city. It is a key node for national transport, rail, and communications, as documented by the Congressional Research Service. Omaha, Nebraska is home to the headquarters of U.S. Strategic Command, a nerve center for nuclear operations. And these are just the most obvious. FEMA's expanded national target base lists hundreds of secondary and tertiary sites: bridges, power plants, critical rail junctions, major airports, and telecommunications hubs. Some are hidden in plain sight. You may live in a quiet town that happens to be the control center for an entire power grid or a data hub for the East Coast internet. What does all this mean for you? If you live near any of these cities or bases, it is not about panic. It is about being informed. These places are not picked at random. They are selected for their strategic value. Remove them, and you remove the ability to fight, communicate, or recover. And it is not just about nuclear strikes. In many war games, the opening blows are a mix of precision missile attacks, cyber sabotage, and coordinated strikes on energy or transport infrastructure. Sometimes, the goal is to paralyze without mass destruction, to blind command systems, block reinforcements, and sow confusion before the world even realizes what is happening. Here is a micro hook to keep you watching. In just a moment, we will look at a map that shatters a lot of myths. Some of the highest risk zones are nowhere near New York or Los Angeles. They are in places you might never expect, from rural plains to unassuming suburbs. And if your city has ever hosted a military parade, a nuclear exercise, or houses major data centers, you might want to pay extra attention. Do you live near one of these hotspots? Have you ever wondered why your area feels more militarized than others? Share your story in the comments, because sometimes local knowledge is the best warning system there is. What about the rest of the world? The logic is similar, but the map is even more crowded. In Europe, London, Paris, Berlin, and Warsaw are all high on the list, not just for their political importance, but for their roles as NATO command and logistics hubs. Belgium, often overlooked, is home to SHAPE, NATO's supreme headquarters. In Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg are obvious targets, centers of government, command, and culture. But dozens of sites across Siberia, the Urals, and the Russian Far East host nuclear bases, airfields, and missile silos. In China, Beijing and Shanghai lead, but regional military districts in Shenyang, Chengdu, and Guangzhou also matter. Northeast Asia is a tinderbox. Seoul, Tokyo, and even Okinawa are all within range of rival missile systems. The Middle East is another cluster of risk. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Riyadh, Tehran, each could become a flashpoint, depending on alliances and escalation. According to BBC analysis and maps from the Federation of American Scientists, much of the world's risk map clusters around key choke points, places where alliances meet and technology can shift the balance overnight. Where do you think the greatest risk lies right now? Europe, Asia, or the Middle East? Let's see what the comments say. But today, the threat map is not just about bombs and missiles. In the age of digital warfare, the most devastating first strike could be invisible. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency reports that Russia, China, and other actors have probed U.S. power grids, water supplies, and financial systems with increasingly sophisticated attacks. In 2022, the U.S. Justice Department revealed that state-sponsored hackers targeted over 135 critical sites in the U.S. and Europe, none of which would show up on a traditional strike map, but every one of them could paralyze a nation. There's also the threat from space. Satellite relays, GPS, and missile warning systems are now potential targets. As reported by Defense One and Reuters, attacks on satellites, whether by hacking or physical weapons, could blind entire militaries or even trigger accidental escalation. Finally, there is the risk of precision strikes using hypersonic weapons. These missiles travel so fast that defense systems have only seconds to react, making traditional deterrence models less reliable. A world where the first strike is a blackout, a communications failure, or a loss of satellite imagery is not science fiction, it is today's reality. Does the idea of a cyber or space-based attack worry you more than a conventional strike? Let's get a discussion going. You might be thinking, well, I am nowhere near a capital or a missile base, so I am safe. But here is where it gets more complicated. In a major war, the risks go far beyond the direct blast zone. Fallout from a nuclear strike can travel hundreds of miles, depending on wind patterns. According to FEMA's nuclear fallout models, a bomb over a missile base in Wyoming could send radioactive dust as far as Chicago, Minneapolis, or even the Atlantic coast, depending on conditions. Then there's the second wave of risk: disrupted logistics, food and fuel shortages, infrastructure collapse, and mass movements of people. As the experience of Ukraine, Syria, and even the U.S. during Katrina showed, being far from the front lines does not guarantee safety. Medical care, clean water, reliable news all become harder to access. Another hidden danger is disinformation. In every major crisis, false alerts, rumors, and panic spread even faster than the attack itself. The CDC and the Red Cross both stress that being mentally and logistically prepared is just as important as your GPS coordinates. Are you in a place that people assume is safe? How would you prepare if things started to go wrong? Share your ideas. Someone out there needs your perspective. Now let's get practical. If you want to know whether your area could become a target, there are 3 real-world warning signs experts say to watch for. First, sudden movements of military vehicles, aircraft, or ships that are out of the ordinary. As noted by military.com and the New York Times, unusual deployments or unannounced drills often precede major events. Second, the activation of emergency alert systems or sudden changes in local warning protocols. Sometimes these changes are test runs, but in high-tension periods, they can signal real concerns. Finally, changes in official communication, information blackouts, canceled public events, or even government silence can mean that something significant is happening behind the scenes. None of these signals are perfect by themselves, but taken together, they can give you a vital early warning. The bottom line is, you do not have to be an insider to notice when things are shifting. The key is to pay attention, stay informed, and connect with others who are watching too. Have you ever seen strange activity in your city or state? Do you know where to get real information when the usual channels go quiet? Let's share resources and build community in the comments. To wrap up, the threat map is not about fear, it is about clarity and preparation. The first strikes in a global war would not just hit obvious targets, but also the systems and connections that keep our world running. The best way to stay safe is not to obsess over every new hot zone rumor, but to focus on the facts, understand the logic of modern conflict, and get ready wherever you are. If you have made it this far, you are already ahead of the panic. You are looking for real answers, not hype. Subscribe to Safety Zone so you never have to rely on rumors, and share this video with someone you care about. Next time, we will break down how to turn your own location into the safest zone possible, no matter what the map says.